Sean, what's going on? Do you believe we're almost at the All-Star break? Like it's next week.
I'm ready. It's hockey weather. It's going to be hockey weather in Toronto. It's going to be fantastic. There's going to be a few Edmonton Oilers there. They're the hottest team in the league right now. We're going to bring in our colleague Derek Van Diest, who's covered that team for ages and covered it for us for a couple of years now. He's going to give us the lowdown on why the Edmonton Oilers are the hottest team in the league. But before that, we have a lot of news to deal with, starting probably with Patrick Roy on the island and a new coach. I'm not sure that I saw it coming, but here we are.
I think it's fascinating. I love it. I think this is Lou Lamoriello and his last stand. And Lou's got about 1,000 lives in this league, so maybe I'm wrong, but he's 81 years old. And he has made the bold move here to bring Patrick Roy back into the National Hockey League. He spent 3 years with the Colorado Avalanche, 2013 through 16, and he didn't go out the way he came in. He came in as a coach with a lot of fanfare, and the team won 52 games, and they get to the playoffs, and yeah, they lose in the first round, but they were way ahead of schedule. And then he went out, and it was a late resignation, if you remember, all that time ago, and he wanted more say, this and that, and it didn't work, and then he had to wait. He had to bide his time, and we kept wondering, right, Sean, like, who was going to be the guy that brings Patrick Roy back in the NHL? Would he get a call? Would he get the opportunity to come back as a coach in this league? And Lou Lamoriello has given it to him. Lou believes in his team. This is not a rebuild or a retool. This is, we are bringing in a guy for this season and likely beyond, but he needs to give our team a kick in the pants because they need it, and that is what it's for here. If it works out, it could work for a while here for the Islanders and Lou Lamoriello, and it'll be a great thing for them. And Lou will look like a genius as the guy who brought Patrick Roy back, beat all the other GMs to it. If it does not work out, then I think this might be it for Patrick Roy as an NHL coach and Lou Lamoriello as a GM, but we may not know that for a year or two.
I can't believe that you think that this is Lou's last stand. I don't think Lou's ever made a choice thinking about himself. Ever. The team comes first. I don't think this has anything to do with Lou. If Lou leaves at the end of the year, it doesn't matter to him. He did what was best for the team. That's what he's always done. He's fired coaches 4 games before the playoffs because it was best for the team. There's almost no ego in Lou that I've ever seen. So I don't think that this is him saying, well, I got to save my bacon, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to hire Patrick Roy. There's 2 things here. I think he thinks the team needed a change, which clearly they do. And he's, unlike a lot of other GMs, I don't think he's afraid to work with really powerful, opinionated people. Look at his past. He's worked with Hall of Famers, Jacques Lemaire, Larry Robinson, guys who would say to him, no, I don't believe in this. This is the way we're going to do it. I believe in this. This is how I want to do it. And I think Lou, and Dave Stubbs wrote a great piece today, and that was part of it, was saying that Lou likes to work with people that challenge him. I think Patrick Roy is going to challenge him. He certainly challenged Joe Sakic when he was in Colorado. Unlike a lot of other GMs, I don't think there was an ounce of ego in this.
I don't think there was ego in this, and I don't think he's trying to save his bacon either. I'm saying this is the move. That if this one works out, well then Lou's going to stay the GM of the New York Islanders for a while. But if it does not work out, there might have to be a change in New York. There might have to be a change with the Islanders, and it might have to be Lou and the coach if it doesn't work out. And like I said, this is going to take time. We're not going to know right away. We're not going to know this season. Like whether they make it or not, this is the move he had to make, and he did it. But if it does not work out, Sean, the Islanders are going to have to make a change. And they're going to have to make a change at the top, and they're going to have to make a change through. And I don't see Lou getting another job as a GM in the National Hockey League if that's the case. That's what I mean by his last stand. Not that this is an ego-driven thing, that he's doing this to save his butt this season. No. Not at all. What I'm curious to see is what happens with the Islanders when Patrick Roy is out of the honeymoon phase, right? It's nice now. He can't come in and tear a team apart. He can't come in and rip Noah Dobson for an egregious pass through the middle of the ice that leads to a goal against. He can't come in his debut game and say, we were no good, right? even though we won the game, we were no good, which if he had been a coach there for a couple of years, sure, he might be doing, right? But Patrick Waugh is going to put his stand. He's going to get to a point with this team where he's going to feel as though he can, give it to them a little bit. It's not going to be all nice. And how do the Islanders respond to that? I think they'll be fine. I do. I think this is a veteran team. They understand what they've got. They understand the type of coach they have. He's intense. He's emotional. I think it's going to be okay. And I think he's the right coach for them at this point because they need that intensity. They need that energy and they need that emotion. And they also need a guy who's going to put, puck possession and move the puck forward and, that type of style into it right now instead of wait back, sit back, things like that. It's just right now they're in the honeymoon phase with Patrick Waugh. It's only been a couple of games. He's in Montreal, of all places, in his third game. That's tonight. We're recording this on Thursday. And he goes to Montreal for that. So this is a big show there. But it's going to take some time here for them to get used to Patrick Waugh, for Patrick Waugh to understand what he has. And then there's going to come a point, too, where Patrick Waugh is not going to hold back in the media or to his team in individual meetings or overall to the team in general. And then we're going to see a response. And that's going to be a key part of the season, I think, for the Islanders.
You really think Patrick Waugh is going to hold his tongue?
I think he's going to hold it for a little bit. I do. I really do. I think he has to learn what he has. I don't think he's going to hold his tongue for 25 games. I think he could hold it for 5 games.
He's not going to hold his tongue at all. He's a Hall of Fame goaltender who once told Jeremy Roenick that he has Stanley Cups in his ears and can't hear him. The guy is bombastic. He's confident. He knows what he's doing. Again, he's a strong personality. He's not going to sit there and say, oh, Noah, I don't want to upset you. Yeah, that was a really bad pass, but good for you. You tried. There are no participation trophies going to be handed out on Long Island to the Islanders. This is going to be hard, and that's what Lou wants, and that's what they need. They're a soft team. They give up leads in the third period every game almost. They can't hold a lead. That is the DNA of this team for years. And they can't do it this year. They need somebody to kick them in the pants and say, this isn't good enough anymore, boys. Do something. Earn your keep. Here's how you're going to do it. You do what I say, and this is what's going to happen. It's not going to be kumbaya, ever.
Do you like the move?
Yeah, I like the move. It's a move that had to be made. I mean, we're going to talk to Derek Van Diest, and he's going to talk about the coaching change in Edmonton and kind of where that came from and what happened and how the players reacted to it. I think this is very similar. I think, you look at this team, and it's a playoff team, and they're not playing to that caliber. And they need a wake-up call. And as painful as it is to see somebody lose their job, they clearly weren't doing what was asked of them, or what was asked of them wasn't good enough to close out games. So you need a new voice. And I don't know that there are many voices better than this. I think it's a high-risk move because you're not going with a recycled coach who you can say, oh, look what he did, with this team, a Gerard Gallant or this guy or that guy or a Craig Berube. You're going back a little bit to a junior coach. Yes, he has NHL experience, but as you mentioned in the opening, it was tainted a bit by his exit, right? And his need for more power. Again, a really strong-willed person who has beliefs that he wants to act on. And again, I think there's only a few GMs in the league who aren't intimidated by that. And Lou is one. I think he actually craves it.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. No question about it. So listen, it's a more fun league when Patrick Waugh is in it, right? I mean, because you never know what you're going to get. So we'll see where it goes with the Islanders, but we'll talk about, listen, a team that might need a kick in the pants, the Los Angeles Kings too, right? So they lose to Buffalo Wednesday night. They had a 3-1 lead. They lose to Buffalo 5-3. And another guy who does not hold his tongue, especially when things are not going the way he wants, is Drew Doughty. And Drew Doughty's comments, Sean, were scathing. Scathing comments from a player who, after that game against Buffalo, says they got guys more worried about their points and individual things that they're doing. They go up 3-1, and they think it's cookie night, he says. And they're just worried about themselves, which I love the line, cookie night, by the way. They're just worried about themselves and their points and not about the team. I don't know who he's talking about. He didn't point it out. I'm not going to speculate either because I think it would be wrong. I have some idea maybe, but you don't really know. But he was certainly targeting those words to teammates, some or all, and it was harsh, and it's coming from a guy who has the pedigree in this league to say things like that. And then Todd McClellan talks his job security in question, and he agrees with it. He says it's a fair question to question my job security right now. And he says to the reporter, like, if I was sitting where you're sitting and you're standing where I'm sitting, and you're standing where I'm standing, I would ask you that question. Amazing what's happened in LA. This is a team, Sean, that was 16-4-3 this season. Looked like they could do no wrong. They can't do anything right now. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's a team that couldn't lose on the road, and we thought that was their strength, right? That they could match up and kind of counter anybody, no matter where they were. And the wheels have just fallen off. I mean, look, the coach has been given a vote of confidence by Rob Blake. I don't know how much those mean, but that was last week, that Todd's going to finish the year and this and that. And I don't know that he's the issue. I think Drew Doughty was speaking truth to power and trying to wake up his team a little bit. And you're right, he does have the cachet. I think it's heard in that room, like, oh, Drew's mad. Like, you don't want a mad Drew. You don't want to spend time with that guy when he's mad. It's not going to be comfortable. And so you wonder if it's a small sample size, right? But it's starting to not be. It's starting to threaten their season. I mean, look, 2 months ago we were talking about, are the Edmonton Oilers going to get into the playoffs? And, the Kings are in the top three and Vegas is in the top three and blah, blah, blah. That's not the case anymore. Edmonton's all the way back. Calgary's found their way. Vegas has 97 injuries. The Kings haven't won in forever. Like, this whole division's wide open again.
By the way, I said I'm not going to speculate on who I think Drew Doughty was talking about, but we do know that Todd McClellan blasted Pierre-Luc Dubois. And Dubois is on his third team now. Didn't have a great exit out of Columbus. Had a worse exit out of Winnipeg. Kings signed him to an 8-year deal. He has not lived up to that in year one of that deal right now, and he got blasted by the coach, and maybe, just maybe, although he didn't name him, good old number 8 in LA called him out as well. So perhaps that is a guy that he was targeting. Either way, it was scathing comments. And here's the Kings right now. Like you said, this is not a small sample size anymore. You're talking about a team that's 6 wins in their last 22 games. 6-10-6, okay? And if you look at their last 14 games, they've got 2 wins. Now, some of these games, sure, they're picking up points. A point here, a point there, because they're not like 2-12. They're 2-7-5. So they got some extra points there, and that's really what's keeping them in this. But they have not played well now for a quarter of the season. So that's not a small sample size. I don't think it's necessarily on Todd McClellan either. I mean, he didn't all of a sudden become a bad coach, and I have no reason to believe that the Kings all of a sudden started to tune him out a little bit. But Drew Doughty's mad, and when Drew Doughty's mad, it's because Drew Doughty believes in his team. Remember we had Luc Robitaille on a couple years ago, and he was saying that, well, in those rebuilding years, it was tough on a guy like Drew because he wants to win so bad, but he knew he couldn't, and it was like, where's the emotion, right? The emotion's back for Drew Doughty right now because he believes in this team. And if he's angry, it means there's something seriously wrong with the team that he believes in. And I don't think it's on Todd, but it might come to that. It might have to come to that, as we've seen it in other markets too.
Yeah, and I think Drew is getting older. And he only sees a certain number of opportunities left, and he thought this was one of them. And you don't just forfeit that. You don't just say, oh, well, things are kind of going wrong. Maybe next year. Maybe next year for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Maybe next year for a lot of other guys. Not for Doughty. Like, he's only got a few more kicks at this can. I know he's an incredible conserver of ice time, and he plays way more minutes than you think he can play, and the way that he plays defense, he can probably go a lot longer than people think, because he hasn't put as much or taken as much tread off his tire as maybe some other defensemen in the way that he's able to conserve himself. But I don't think he's looking at this and being like, oh, next year. next year's okay. Because it's not. So,
No.
and by the way, I love the cookie reference. We were talking about Jacques Lemaire earlier, and covering Jacques in the mid '90s. That was his big thing. It was always everybody wants a piece of the cookie, especially on the power play. So it's a 30-something-year-old saying now, and that hasn't died, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, listen, hey, also with the Los Angeles Kings, let's look at their schedule, right, Sean? I mean, if you look at their schedule, they've playing at Colorado on Friday. That's a tough game. At St. Louis on Sunday. The Blues are playing better. I think they've won 3 in a row now. And then at Nashville on Wednesday before a break. They come back from their break on February 10th, and who do they got? They got the Edmonton Oilers. This is a real critical point. These next 3 games are a huge critical point in the season for the Los Angeles Kings. But mention the Oilers. You brought it up at the top. Derek Van Diest, our colleague based in Edmonton. He's been covering them for a long time. He's covering them through this 14-game winning streak that they're on. It's a little more than a heater at this point. We spoke to Derek about the Oilers, and here is that interview. Derek, thanks so much for joining us. So, I mean, so much here with the Oilers, right? I mean, 14 in a row. How? Why?
Well, the how part is the interesting part is that, you'd expect it to be led by McDavid and Draisaitl and the Oilers be winning, 6-5 every night, but it's suddenly they don't give up more than 2 goals a game. Like they haven't given up more than 2 goals a game, I think, in their last 10 or 11 games. And they're getting it done defensively, which has kind of been the big surprise here, because you think with all the star power they have and all the offense they have is that they'd go out and play fire wagon hockey and win that way. But I think, they're starting to figure it out that if you can keep, things calm in your end of the ice, if you can play well defensively, then you can kind of go on that way. They're playing a lot more patient than they were early on. And let's be honest, their goaltending is a lot better than it was. Defensively, they have better structure than they did before, and they're being and they're getting those breaks that maybe they did at the beginning of the year. So lots of things are going right. Lots of things have to go right for you to win 14 in a row. And right now they're just enjoying this and just gonna keep rolling with it. They got the Hawks tonight, so we'll see how it goes from there.
So it's a bit of a chicken and an egg type of thing. Is their goaltending better, or is their defense better? And how much of this all falls on Paul Coffey?
Well, I think the defense is better because of Paul Coffey. He came in and he challenged those guys. He said, "Hey, we need you guys to come and make plays. And if you can't make plays, we're going to find someone else that can make those plays." So he's kind of challenged those guys. And I think a part of that too is Ekholm is healthy. He wasn't healthy at the beginning of the year, missed the entire training camp. So he's healthy. By in turn, that helps Bouchard out because they play together. And then everyone else is kind of slotted in perfectly. Vinny Desharnais has become a legit NHL defenseman, which at the beginning, we weren't sure if he was kind of a tweener guy. He's a good AHL defenseman. Could he make the jump to the NHL? He's become a solid number 6 guy. But the goaltending is better. Stuart Skinner has taken his game to a new level, and he has played a lot better than he has. Once Jack Campbell was kind of shipped out, when they sent him to the American Hockey League and said to Stuart Skinner, "It's your net. You're the guy." I think that really helped him, and he's just taken it over, and he's taken his game to just another level than it was even last year when he had such a good year as a rookie to this year. He's just improved by a mile.
So I guess my question here then is, with the new we talk about Paul Coffey and the impact he's had, but Chris Knoblauch and the impact he's had, and I'm wondering, from what you see, and you're right inside it, and you see it all the time, would they be doing this under Jay Woodcroft too, or has Chris Knoblauch done something here to enable this team to really take off?
Well, that's a good question, because they weren't happy that Jay Woodcroft got let go. Let's just start there. They liked Jay Woodcroft. They liked playing for Jay Woodcroft. When he got let go, the room was not happy. You could tell. You went in the room and they did not want Jay Woodcroft to get let go. Chris Knoblauch is a little different. He's such a mellow, serene guy. He just never gets upset. He's always a level-headed guy. And I think that translates to the rest of the team. Like before, when things went bad, it was like the end of the world and they couldn't get over this. But now, like he's such a calm demeanor behind the bench, never gets real excited, never gets too upset. And I think the guys look at that and go, okay, well, if our coach isn't getting upset, maybe we shouldn't be getting upset either. And I think in that regard, he has helped a lot because he's a calming influence. He's a very, very bright hockey guy. Like, this is a guy that really knows his game. He's been around the game a long time. And right now, every button he's pressing is working, whether that's being switching lines up between games, whether whatever goaltender he starts, everything seems to be working for him right now. And then I think that comes with preparation, and that comes with the staff really getting together and working well. But the guys bought in early in what he was selling. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Not that they tuned out Jay. They said that a lot. Like, every time they talk about Chris Knoblauch, they always go, well, it's not like we had a problem with Jay. We didn't tune out Jay. Jay was a good coach. Just a different approach and different demeanor. And I think that's really, really helping the guys, especially when things don't go well. Like the other night, they were horrible for 2 periods. They were lucky to be out going to that third period tied 1-1. And then they just turned it on in the third and won that game. So things like that, they don't, when things aren't going well, they don't get too excited.
Derek, how much of this falls at the skates of McDavid, right? And I'm not even talking about offensive production, which has been off the charts pretty much since Knoblauch got there, but more mentally. Like, we saw him early in the year. You and I covered the Heritage Classic game. Obviously, he wasn't 100%, but he also didn't seem to be 100% mentally. He seemed frustrated. He seemed angry at times, and certainly this is a team that feeds off of his demeanor. How much of this renaissance can be attributed to Connor McDavid being a better version of Connor McDavid?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is. And I think a lot of it started because he had that injury and he was out for 2 games, but he probably, he wanted to come back for the Heritage Classic. And you could tell he was playing hurt. He wasn't himself. He wasn't the Connor McDavid that we were used to. And I think maybe that was kind of frustrating part for him. And he's got so much weight on his shoulders. He's carrying this franchise. And everyone knows that there's right now, because his contract is up in 3 years. Leon Draisaitl's is up in 2 years. There's a window here that these guys need to kind of win. If they're going to win, they're going to have to do it in this window. So they're feeling that pressure. And I think they felt a little of that pressure early on in the year. And then when he wasn't healthy, he wasn't able to do the things he's usually normally able to do. He didn't have that separation speed. He wasn't taking on players the way he was. And I think that was a frustrating part. He was just trying to gut through it, and it wasn't working. But then once he got healthy and once he started playing the way we expected him to be playing, yeah, I think a lot of it falls on him, and he's kind of leading the charge here. But also, it's on the other side of the puck as well. He's not cheating to get offense. And I think the Oilers really talked about that, is we got to be solid defensively. And I think he was challenged here. And they said, hey, if you want to be a great player, if you want to win, you got to be great in your own end of the ice. You got to be solid your own end of the ice. And I think he's doing that right now. And you're seeing the production is a little bit down, but he'd rather win games and have his production down than lose games and be off the charts offensively. So I think he's bought into this defensive scheme as well, and being responsible on your own end first before you go chase offense.
In addition to McDavid and Draisaitl, which, they're the drivers, we know that. But the knock on the Oilers, right, was that it's always McDavid and Draisaitl in this run, and not just this 14-game run, but I think you go back to since Knoblauch took over. 2 guys that have really come out are Warren Foegele, and Ryan McLeod. The impact those guys have had, they're not as great of an impact, obviously, as McDavid can have, but without their impact, without that secondary production, are we talking about the Oilers like this right now?
Yeah, no, we're not. And that's a great point, Dan, because those 2 guys got going. Like, they really struggled at the beginning of the year. They went a long time without getting a point. The Oilers had no production from their bottom 2 lines early on. It had to be McDavid and Draisaitl and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Zach Hyman. If your top 6 weren't scoring 2 or 3 goals a night, they weren't going to win games. But now that's changed. I think those guys found themselves a role. And I think when Knoblauch came in here, the first thing he did, he said, hey, listen, everyone on this team is going to have a role, whether you're a first-line guy, whether you're a fourth-line guy, top pairing defenseman, bottom pairing defenseman, you're each going to have a role. And I think the guys took to that and they said, okay, I have a role on this team. I'm not just a guy that's filling ice time. So when McDavid and Draisaitl can get back on the ice. And I think that's really, the guys kind of took that and went with it. And Foegele and McLeod both really found their game. They're both really talented players. They're both guys that can fly. And Fogel's got actually pretty good hands when he is playing confident, and he's playing confident right now. He's playing the best hockey of his career, and not coincidentally, he's in a contract here. And I think Ken Holland was kidding about that a couple of times that, oh, we're going to have to re-sign this guy if he keeps playing this well. But yeah, they're both playing well. They both found roles. They both were challenged and said, hey, if you guys didn't help this hockey team, you have to do this for this hockey team. And you're right. That's taken a lot of pressure off those top 6 guys because they are getting some production from the bottom 6 now, which the first 20 games of the year, they weren't at all, not at all. So that really does help out.
Derek, they've won 14 games in a row, 13 at the time of the signing of Corey Perry. They were 23-3 in the last 2 months. Why Corey Perry?
Well, because they know him well, being on the other side of the puck from this guy. Like they know him well from when they're playing against him in Anaheim. And Corey Perry, and everyone says this, everyone hates playing against Corey Perry. He's a gritty guy. He's borderline dirty. He's a guy that just gets in everyone's kitchen, let's say. So they said, hey, that guy's available. He can help us, and he can help this team. He can help this team in leadership wise. He can help this team because he knows what it takes to go deep in the playoffs. He's a playoff guy. There's a reason why Corey Perry was won a Stanley Cup, and he was on 3 consecutive Stanley Cup finalists. This is a guy that knows how to win, and you can't have enough of those guys in your room if you want to win. And I think he's going to be a good fit here. All the guys said we hated playing against him, but we love the fact that he's in our team. And I think Connor McDavid was very instrumental in trying to convince Corey Perry to come here and saying, hey, you can help us out. We need more grit. We need more of that toughness, or that kind of, that just to be the pest in the playoffs. We need more of that. Evander Kane had that role last year, and now he's got a kind of a sidekick to do it. So they got a couple of guys that can really get under your skin. And they're hoping that Corey Perry won't come in here and disrupt anything. They won't disrupt any chemistry. I think a lot of the guys said, hey, we know the guy. We didn't like him when he played against them, but we love him playing on our team, and we'd rather play with him in the playoffs than against him in the playoffs. And I think that was the big part of it as well.
So why are we to believe? I mean, and I get all that about Corey Perry. It makes sense. I understand it. But overall, big picture, why are we to believe that it's not just an Edmonton Oilers hot regular season run right now, that this team is more prepared to win in the playoffs?
I think we believe that because of the way they're winning. Because of the way they're winning those games that you have to try and win in the playoffs. They're winning 2-1. They're winning 1-0. They're winning those tight defensive checking games, those patient games that you have to have. And it's not regular season hockey versus playoff hockey. They're doing what they need to do in the playoffs. So when they get there, they'll have done that. They'll have been able to grind out those victories and grind out those wins. And it's what they're doing right now. And I think that's probably why it's not a facade. This is just a regular season thing, because I think they realize that, hey, this is a team that's gone on 2 pretty good runs in the last couple of years. They know they've played a lot of playoff series. They know what it takes, and they know what they have to do to get there. And at the beginning of the year, they were talking about, well, we have to be better defensively. We have to win those 2-1 games. We have to win those 3-2 games. We have to be able to do that. And they didn't do that at the beginning of the year. And they would kind of fall back to, okay, fire wagon hockey. But now they're doing that on this run. They're playing those games. They're not exactly flashy. They're not exactly really entertaining. Like sometimes it's a grind to watch his team play, but they're playing that patient game, knowing that when they get their chance, they're going to make the most of it. And that's how they're going to have to win in the playoffs. And I think they're kind of doing that right now.
So Derek, before I let you go, you've sold me on the Edmonton Oilers, but you haven't sold yourself on them. The power rankings came out today. Both of your hosts here.
That's right.
The Edmonton Oilers at number 1. 14 wins in a row.
Yeah.
20 wins out of their last 23. You see them every night. What are they going to do to be the top team in the league, buddy?
No, they're getting there. They got to get there. Like it's a matter of, they put themselves in such a huge hole at the beginning of the season, and I'm looking at it as an overall picture thing. Yeah, they might be the hottest team in the league right now, but it's an overall picture thing. Like this thing, the bottom could fall out of this thing. Like they didn't give themselves any wiggle room with that start at the beginning of the year. Like I want to see them comfortably in that playoff spot, not fighting for a playoff spot. I think they're the hottest team in the league right now. Are they the best team in the league right now? I'm not convinced of that, because to me, you have to be consistent throughout an entire 82-game season to be considered the best team in the league. And they went from a valley to a peak right now. There's got to be a happy middle ground there, and I'm not sure that middle ground is the top team in the league right now.
All right. Well, you backed it up a little bit there, but you did have it.
I'm not buying it.
So yeah, I'm not buying it either. But Derek, thanks so much for hopping on with us. Really appreciate it. Good stuff on the Oilers. All right.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Good stuff there from Derek Shawn. He's tied in. He knows what's going on with that team. And Listen, I agree with him. This is more than McDavid and Draisaitl. You have to see it that way. It's why I brought up guys like Fogle and McLeod, because their production has been high end for bottom six guys, and it's been a big key for this. But still, it remains, for me, the most impressive thing about this entire winning streak is a plus 31 goal differential. Only 23 goals allowed, 54 scored, which is, over 3 a game, but it's a remarkable it's just a remarkable run of defense here for a team that I didn't think had it in them. Honestly, didn't think it had it in them, but now I do. And I asked Derek the question, Sean, is this just a hot team in the regular season? Can they do this in the playoffs? And until they prove it, we're going to be asking that question.
Yeah, no, and I'm still cynical. I saw them in the playoffs last year, as did you, and they were highly confident, and then they ran into a complete team, and the wheels fell off, right? But, I think there's a lot of credit that has to go around, and, the two people that I would signal before or point out before we move on to other topics is Stuart Skinner should get a ton of credit just for the mental fortitude he showed. I mean, they were ready to run him out of town on a rail, right? Any goalie could be better than this guy. Let's just go get somebody else. And he proved that last year wasn't a fluke, and he stayed with it mentally, which I think for a goalie is really hard. And good on Ken Holland. I don't know how much he could have done, but he didn't panic. He made the right move with the coach, even though he didn't want to. And his patience, when people were clamoring for all kinds of moves to be made, his patience is paid off now. And now all of a sudden everybody loves the same team that they hated 2 months ago. Pretty funny the way this game works sometimes, huh?
Yeah. And listen, we joked around with Derek at the end of the interview there about our Super 16. You and I and Bill Price, we had him at number 1. And I didn't even think twice about it, Sean. Like, you win 14 in a row. You win the amount of games that they're winning. It's, 20 out of 23. This isn't a small sample size. We just talked about that with the Kings before we went to Derek, right? They're losing, and it's not a small sample size anymore. You talk about a 25% of the season almost, where a team's been winning at the pace that they're winning at. It's not a small sample size, and this is a team that is playing the best right now in the National Hockey League. Are they the best in the National Hockey League? I mean, that's to be determined, right? We can't figure that out on January 25th. I don't know who the best team is in the NHL at this point, but this one's certainly been playing the best, and they've been playing the best for a long time. So you had him at number 1, Bill had him at number 1, and I had him at number 1, but our colleagues did not believe that necessarily, because Mike Morial, love him, draft class guru, NHL Draft Class Podcast. By the way, listen to the NHL Draft Class Podcast. Our producer, Bob Bender, will like that little plug there. He's in Moncton, New Brunswick. He must not be watching the Edmonton Oilers at all. He had him at number 10. I hope Mike Morial's listening to this too, because I feel like there's times where I want to kill him for his Super 16, and this is one of them.
But we all have different opinions. Like, look at the New York Rangers, right? Like
10.
All over the place. You had him at 12 or 13. You
I had him at 12.
Yeah,
I had him at 12.
That was the lowest. Usually I'm the lowest with them, and you trump me by at least 3 places, right? I think we all look at teams differently. I had Nashville really high. Like, I think Nashville's played really well lately. And look, the way I do it is, part of it's now, and part of it's what I think will happen in the playoffs. Once I get those teams lined up, and then I look at it and I say, who beats who in a playoff right now, right? You're going to play a 7-game series right now. Edmonton's the hottest team in the league. I think right now they win a 7-game series against anybody. Right now it'd be the Bruins. That's going to change, right? And I still think when it's all over, Colorado's going to be in that top spot, Dan. Let's just, for 1 second, talk about Nathan MacKinnon.
Oh.
The guy is ridiculous. 4 goals last night. They're throwing undergarments on the ice now because they got rid of all the hats. So they had to move on to something else. The guy's like Tom Jones in concert. Like, this is craziness. He scored in every home game they've played. I think it's 24 games, 50 points. Over 2 points every time they play in Denver. It's completely bazonkers.
He's got points in 31 of the last 32 games, I think it is, that they've played.
He's in video game mode, and with the other pieces that they have, could carry them to a Stanley Cup almost single-handedly.
No.
Who's going to shut him down? Who is going to shut that guy down? Name me a defenseman or a defense 6 that's going to shut that cat down.
That's why I think he's the best player in the National Hockey League. His combination of power and speed and skill is unmatched in this league right now. And by the way, it's been a great toe-to-toe matchup with him and Nikita Kucherov in the Art Ross Trophy race. They just keep one-upping each other. But McKinnon, by the way, has 7 games this season without a point, 10 games this season with at least 3, I think. Like, it's an insane number. It's been a great little back and forth between him and Kucherov, who both, by the way, are in the All-Star Skills competition, Sean. So as you brought up McKinnon, it got me thinking, too, we did this on NHL.com. The skills competition is coming up. It's Friday night in Toronto. It's going to be a great weekend next weekend in Toronto. And Nathan McKinnon and Nikita Kucherov are 2 of the players, 2 of the 12 that are going to be in that competition. It's a reworked, reformatted competition. $1 million on the line. Only the 12 guys are in it. Who do you think wins it?
I think Nathan McKinnon wins it. To me, he's the most skilled player in the league right now. And the most confident. Everything's working for him. I think he's the player to beat.
Fair. And I'm not going to sit here and argue against that, though I'll tell you what, with these 12 guys that are in this thing, and the 12, by the way, are Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, Pasternak, McKinnon, Makar, Draisaitl, McDavid, Pettersson, Nylander, Matthews, Kucherov, and at the present time, Jack Hughes. We'll see about Jack Hughes. He is hurt right now. I think Quinn Hughes wins this thing. And the reason I think Quinn Hughes wins it is because the competitions that you're in, he is a top-end guy in just about every one of these things: shot, skating, speed, accuracy in the pass, accuracy in the shot, power in the shot. I think he's high end in all categories, so I think he wins it. You got McKinnon. It's going to be it'll be a lot of fun that weekend in Toronto. We got a lot to look forward to there. But a couple other things, Sean, before we get out of here. Big press release came out on Wednesday from the Smith Entertainment Group in Utah. Principal owners of the Utah Jazz, the Delta Center, the soccer teams there. They want a team. They are not making any secret about it. We knew about it. They want a team in Salt Lake City. And they announced that they have requested to the National Hockey League to begin a formal expansion process to bring a team to Salt Lake City. It's really interesting. And I think one of the first thoughts I had of this, Sean, as this was coming out and this was breaking, was there's a lot of business people who are lining up to be in business with the National Hockey League right now. So I guess business must be pretty good.
Yeah, well, the first thing I thought when I heard it and it started cumbling and rumbling is that it sounds an awful lot like Vegas, right? This was the Vegas model. Like, Foley went to the league and said, let me run a season ticket thing. No pressure. Let me run it. See what happens. And the league said, okay. And then 17 minutes later, the building was sold out. There was a huge waiting list. And, hey, you should come join us. Not only are people interested, but they're taking the lead. They're that interested, right? That they're putting themselves on the line and saying, we're going to make this happen because we're confident that we can do it, and B, we're this is something that we want to be involved with. So, I think it's really interesting. I think, Salt Lake would certainly be different from most other places that we're in. I was there for the Olympics many, many moons ago. I was like 10 when I covered that Olympics, by the way, if anybody's trying to do the math. I was a prodigy.
No, you weren't.
Yeah, I was. And but it certainly adds to the West, and I think it gives it a new vibe. When you look at what happened in Seattle, I think Salt Lake is ready to do the same thing.
Well, it's going to be interesting, too, because you also have the situation with the Arizona Coyotes and their arena situation. And it's coming up time here where the NHL had said they really need to get an answer on what's going on, right? So we're talking potential expansion for a team like Salt Lake, and that may be where they want to lean. But there's also that potential of relocation, which is not something, obviously, the NHL wants to do, but it's something that has to be considered a reality at this point with no firm arena plans in place there. So we'll see where it goes. I'm sure Gary Bettman will be asked about that next week when we're in Toronto for All-Star Weekend, and it's not a story that's going to be going away anytime soon, that's for sure. Before we get out of here, mailbag. right? So I do the mailbag every week on NHL.com, and we talk about it here every once in a while. There was a question, and you brought up the Predators before, and I literally just brought up the Coyotes 30 seconds ago, right? So there was a question back to On the Ice about with the trade deadline coming up. The Nashville Predators and the Arizona Coyotes are kind of right there, right? I mean, they're right in the mix in a playoff race in the Western Conference. What should these teams be looking to do? And I think it was like, are they good enough to get in and compete with the Colorados, the Winnipegs, the Vancouvers, the Edmontons, or in a buyer mode? Or should they not be looking at that because even if they were to buy, they really wouldn't be in that level, irregardless, right? My answer was both teams should be buyers, and they should be buyers immediately. They have draft capital to use. Both of them have done that. The Coyotes have stockpiled their draft picks for the next couple of years. You can use some of that to make your team better right now. They've got cap space to use, which is not a lot of teams have. Not a lot of teams have draft capital and cap space. You might have one, you might have the other. These two teams have both, and they have veterans guys on the team that are going to push forward and here help this team's win. Like the Predators didn't sign Ryan O'Reilly and Gustav Nyquist to go be a seller at the deadline. The Coyotes didn't go out and get guys like Kerfoot and Zucker and Dursey and Dumba, who's hurt right now, to be a seller at the deadline. They wanted to go ahead and win. So I think both these teams, Sean, should be buyers, and I think they should be buyers right away to jump ahead of the queue if you could.
But I think you have to take stock of the market, right? Like, I think you have to look and see what the prices are. And with so many teams bunched together still in the playoffs and so few pure sellers, I think the market, the prices right now are going to be astronomical. I was down in Voorhees yesterday. Danny Briere had his midseason availability. There's another team that's sitting in a playoff spot that they didn't think they were going to be in, and he was asked, "What are you going to do? You didn't expect to be here," and he's like, I'm not giving away prime assets to chase a playoff spot. Now, they're in a different place than the two teams you mentioned because they are in a full rebuild, and why would you give away A-grade players or draft picks when you don't think that you're good enough to win? I think Nashville and, to a degree, Arizona are in a different place that way, and I think everybody looks at Florida, an eighth-place team, and says, I could capture that same magic. I think Florida's a little bit of a different example. The Kings did it as well, so it can be done, but you have to have some pretty good faith, and you have to have a really, really, really good goaltender, which I think the Nashville Predators do. That's why I'm so high on them doing it. But like I said, until things get sorted out and teams start dropping out, the prices are going to be astronomical.
Well, yes, but remember, it was just last year that Bo Horvat got traded at the right before the All-Star weekend, right? And the price was not astronomical. It was Anthony Beauvillier, Atu Radi, and a conditional pick, right? And that's for an borderline elite player in Bo Horvat to the New York Islanders. So the Islanders got their guy early. I think if you can do that, heck, even if it means you have to set the market, right? Get your guy. That you target a guy. If you have a guy, if you're Bill Armstrong with the Coyotes, right, or you're Barry Trotz with the Nashville Predators, and there's a guy or two out there that you're targeting, well, don't wait. Go get him. Because your team's going to be better immediately because of it, or at very least, it gives you the time and to develop that chemistry. And look, a team that everybody should be looking at right now is the Calgary Flames, right? I mean, where are the Calgary Flames going with their current roster? I don't know. I mean, they play a little bit better than they lose, so they're not really going anywhere with this team. But Elias Lindholm, Noah Hannafin, Chris Tanev, all pending unrestricted free agents. Last year, the deal. If the Flames are going to have to go in a different direction, right? I am absolutely looking at any one of those three players, if not all three of those players, to try to get them because I know they'll help my team get better.
Well, there's a blockbuster.
Yeah, exactly. You get all three of them, right?
3 for 8 or something like that, right? Like those are old time. That's an EA Sports trade right there. You're getting on the PS5 and making that thing work. So, you could keep living in fantasy land there, Dan. But I think the prices are a little more expensive. I think it's a little more backed up this year. There's more teams that think they can get in the playoffs and make a little bit of cash and get their fan base excited. So, I do think the prices are higher, but they're only going to go up. right? So maybe you do get in early. It's going to be interesting, and teams are already talking about it. Steve Stales from Ottawa came out today and talked a little bit about the deadline and what he wants to do. So it's already on GM's minds, and it's really going to pick up steam after the All-Star game. But we do have the All-Star game to get through first, and it's going to be amazing, from the draft on Thursday and the women's game to the revamped skills on Friday, and then to the 3-on-3 game that we've all come to know the last few years, and the teams are just absolutely stacked. It's going to be such a great showcase for the NHL. I can't wait to get up there. I don't even care how cold it's going to be, Dan.
It's going to be a great weekend, and all we'll be talking about coming out of it till March 8th, which is the trade deadline, is the trade deadline and the trades that will be happening. I hope it's a lot. It'll be a lot of fun, but let's get out of here now. We still got a lot of games to go before we get to Toronto for All-Star Weekend, so enjoy them. Enjoy the hockey.